Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about something a little bit different. This is not a review, even though I just received the Daniel Hertz Amber system in a few days ago and have been listening to it and evaluating it. I'll have my review down the road on that system. But it sparked this idea to make this video because the Amber speakers are speakers that use a coaxial or a concentric driver, much like speakers from Tannoy, much like the MoFi SourcePoint 10 that I reviewed not that long ago. And these kind of speakers definitely have a different kind of sound from horn speakers and from your traditional driver speakers. Now, I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm not knowledgeable in speaker design or amp design. I'm just a guy that loves to hear great music reproduced in a way that brings magic and life. In fact, I use my audio system. I was writing an article today. It's kind of like my therapist, my audio system. It takes stress away, it eases the mind. It's a beautiful thing. But I want to talk today about the sound differences between, say, a coaxial or concentric driver speaker, and that's a speaker that has your big driver, and in the middle is your tweeter. The big driver handles the bass and the mid-range, and of course, the tweeter handles your high frequencies. I'm going to talk about how they sound in comparison to, say, a horn speaker. I've heard quite a few horn speakers in life, Avant-Garde, Klipsch, and some others. As a matter of fact, the Fleetwood DeVilles uses a horn tweeter. And then standard speakers, your typical two-way, three-way speaker. It escapes me what they're technically called, but the speakers that are sold everywhere where you have your bass driver, your tweeter, or your bass, mid, and tweeter driver. All three of these designs sound quite a bit different, and which one you like will depend on your tastes. But I've been discovering which sound I like the best, and I used to actually be a horn guy because they were so easy to drive. They were effortless in reproduction, but there are drawbacks with horns. I'll get to that here in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's start with the sound of a coaxial or concentric driver. I've only heard a few designs such as this, the Andrew Jones MoFi SourcePoint 10. I did recently hear the SourcePoint 8s as well. The Tannoy, I've heard some Tannoy GRs, some of the expensive ones in the fancy cabinets, and those were well set up running with a Luxman gear, I believe, at the time. And then also these Ambers from Daniel Hertz. And they all have one thing in common. They sound different from any other kind of speaker I've heard. And I'll just go with the Ambers because of the three I've heard, for me, the Ambers have been the most complete top to bottom. But they all share a similar characteristic. SourcePoint speakers, I'll call them SourcePoint speakers. They're called that because everything emanates from the same source of the speaker. Your bass, your mid-range, your treble, all comes from that same source point, right? So this brings some sound differences from other speakers. And where these SourcePoint speakers excel, I have found, is without question in the imaging. The Ambers, the SourcePoint 10s, the Tannoys, all provide spectacular imaging. And imaging is where you could sit in your seat, you have your system playing, it's set up properly for your listening seat, right? And you hear the instruments in space where they're supposed to be. Say you're watching a concert and there's a band on stage. You have your guitarist to the left, your bassist to the right, the singer in the middle. You can reproduce this effect with your home system. And these SourcePoint speakers, for me, are key to doing just that, if that's your thing. If you're looking for three-dimensional, holographic, pinpoint kind of imaging, SourcePoint coaxial concentric driver speakers really excel at this. They also excel at producing a very vast soundstage, meaning some speakers you can listen to and it seems like they're focused just maybe, a little bit of sound coming directly from the speakers. Some speakers excel at disappearing into the room, and some speakers excel at providing a wide soundstage, meaning you're hearing things beyond the cabinet of the speakers. I hear things that sound with these ambers like they're coming from outside of my room. And it's such a crazy illusion, but it's startling and remarkable at the same time. SourcePoint style speakers I have found put off a wider, taller, deeper sound stage than horns or traditional speakers. So those are the pros of SourcePoints, that imaging and the sound stage and the realism. Vocals sound super scary real with these ambers, and they come out dead center into the room, and the instruments are so clear, so detailed. It's just a remarkable performance from top to bottom. What are the negatives of coaxial concentric drivers? I wouldn't call it a negative because they sound so complete to me, but they don't have that, at least the ones I've heard, they don't have that plumped out mid bass in the mid range. And I like speakers that have a punchy mid band. For example, the Daniel Hertz Ava speakers, the little bookshelves, have a very punchy mid band, and this adds drive to music like heavy metal, right? Where you got those big, powerful guitars and drums and bass. The SourcePoint style speakers don't have that hump in the mids. Everything is just clean, clear, correct. And the ambers do this in a way that is so beautiful. They're not lean or ever hard sounding. I found the tannoys to sound a little flat and hard, and the SourcePoint 10s were a little bright and had a little bit of that hardness. I still loved the speakers, but those were the negatives. I'm not getting that in the amber. They're just so complete. But with some speakers of this type, they will sound a little less full in the mid-band, but instead they're giving you a neutral, natural performance top to bottom. I'm really, really digging these ambers so far. Now let's go to horn speakers. Horn speakers are loved by many, including myself, because they're so easy to drive. Coaxial speakers, or I should say the SourcePoint speakers like the ambers, are also easy to drive at 92 dB efficient. The higher the number, the more easy they are to drive. The more easy they are to drive, the less amplifier power you need. But horn speakers, such as, say, the Klipsch La Scala, they're something like, 106, 107 dB efficient. And you can run those with 2-3 watts per channel and fill a small room with effortless ease, right? Horn speakers, that's their number one claim to fame. You can run them with Fleewatt tube amps, and they have a palpable presence that just sounds beautiful. Now, the weaknesses of horn speakers, and I've seen this in all Klipsch models, the Fleetwood DeVilles to some extent, there's a coloration to the mid-range, right? And this comes from the horns. Basically, in the past, early horn designs, even early Klipsch speakers, sounded a lot like a PA system, and that's basically what a horn speaker. A lot of people consider horn speakers to have that PA sound. The ones that are today that are made like the Fleetwood DeVilles don't have that sound. They sound beautiful, but they have a little bit of that coloration. Also, horn speakers I found seem to lack in the bass department. The Klipsch La Scala, for example, they're $13,000, $14,000. They're beautiful furniture quality speakers. I had a set in here for a few months. And the only thing lacking, and I didn't even realize this till after I heard other speakers that provided more of this, is the bass. Anything from even the Klipsch Cornwall 3, right? Cornwall 4. They have that big driver. You think they're going to slam you out of the room with bass, but the Cornwalls, they do bass very well, but it's not nearly as big or prevalent as you would think it would be. Though they do put out plenty of bass. So do the Forte 4s. But bass seems to be, in my experience of listening to horn speakers, the weak point. When I had avant-garde Unos many, many years ago, it was almost like it was all highs and mids that were colored, and the bass was very weak, even though those speakers at the time had powered subs attached to them. I just couldn't get the bass to groove with me. But horns can be beautiful in many ways. They project out into the room with an energy, and they sound the most like a live performance. Even the little Klipsch Heresy 4s to me are some of the coolest, funnest live-sounding speakers I've heard. Throw on some live recordings, and you can get a sound that is just going to make you move. Compared to the SourcePoint, say for the ambers I'm playing live recordings, I'm hearing every detail pluck with such clarity and life. Every hidden sound comes through, and yet there's nothing lean about it. With the horn speakers, you get that coloration. Some speakers can have a bloated mid, but either way, you can find really, really good horn speakers that don't have those qualities. Fleetwood DeVille's, for example, like I said, are considered a horn speaker, I believe. The tweeter uses a horn. And they were the most refined horn speakers I've heard. But they sound completely different from the SourcePoint style of speakers, right? So let's move on to traditional speakers, speakers that I've owned since I was a kid, right? Mostly bookshelf two-ways were my thing, but I've had some towers. And what I've noticed in these traditional speakers is some speakers have bloated bass, some speakers have a fuller mid-range, some have a leaner mid-range, some have treble that's really hot, and some have a treble that's subdued. But these seem to be, after listening to all types of speakers, it offers up a pleasing full sound, traditional designs, but they can also lack in the coherency. What I mean by that is you don't always hear them as one speaker. Sometimes you hear the highs more than you hear the bass, whereas something like the coaxial drivers, they're all even and they're all lined up perfectly. But you're missing out on that gut punch from the traditional speakers, right? And that's what traditional speakers kind of give me. Something like the Bucard Anniversary 10s just give you that gut punch as you're listening to music, that impact. The coaxials, another thing that just popped into my head that they excel at is dynamic range. That moment from soft to loud can startle you. Horns can do the same thing. Not so much with the traditional speakers. Sure, you can have dynamic traditional speakers. Look at speakers from Revell, like the salons and the studios. I used to have the studios back in the day, and they were dynamic. They had great dynamic range. But the coaxials, the SourcePoints do that better, in my opinion. Overall, the traditional speaker will give you a sound that most people are familiar with, right? You can judge the highs, the mids, the bass, and you might have that punchier bass, and it varies from speaker to speaker. There's no wrong choice when you're buying a speaker. I'm just trying to outline what I hear in the three different types of speaker. And after I've heard all three kinds of speakers, and there's also other speakers out there like open baffle speakers where they're not in a box, right? And I'll talk more about those in another video, but for these three speakers, I'm really jiving with the SourcePoints at this time in my life. I love a lot of traditional speakers, and I think horns have fallen to last place for me these days because now that I've heard so many other speakers, it's so easy to hear the coloration from most horn speakers, and that doesn't sound natural to me. I love the Daniel Hertz Avas, which are traditional two-way speakers. They pack a punch. Their bass is mighty. I've never heard bass out of a passive speaker like that. And the highs are detailed and airy. That is an example for me of one of the finest bookshelves I've heard. Now, I've heard plenty of amazing bookshelf speakers. Dynaudio Heritage Special is one of the best I've heard. Sonus Faber Guarneri, one of the best I've heard, in life, going through life and trying so many different things. But I got to tell you, these SourcePoints, these coaxial concentric type drivers, really make everything sound as one. And these ambers are disappearing in the room. I'm hearing the instruments where they should be in space. Everything is clean and just sounds so dang realistic. So I'm leaning now these days, these years, towards the coaxial concentric type of driver, though I still love the traditional speaker, and I have many of them here still. So those are my thoughts on the differences between those three types of speakers. Now, coaxial's not going to be for everyone. A horn's not going to be for everyone. And heck, even standard speakers aren't going to be for everyone. There's people who prefer different styles of speakers. So in the comments below, let me know what style of speaker you prefer. What is your favorite type of speaker to listen to? And what kind of sound do you look for? I'm curious because after hearing so many speakers over the last 3 years here in my room here, I've definitely narrowed it down to a favorite sound that I like in the room. So what about you guys? Hope you enjoyed this. Thumbs up if you like it. And I will have a review of the Daniel Hertz Amber system. I put a first look with the adventures of the semi trying to get into our yard, from me setting up the speakers to my first thoughts. I put that video in the members section yesterday. It's about 10 minutes, so if you remember, you can go over there and check it out. But I'll have a review here in the not too distant future of that system once I log in some serious hours to it. So thank you guys. I will see you in the next one.